Welcome to the channel. Share where you're watching from. We'd love to find out, so drop a comment below, and let's jump into the story. What would you do if your wife asked for freedom on your anniversary night? One shocking question shattered 7 years of trust. But the truth she's hiding? That's the real bombshell. Ryan and Jessica sat across from each other at Vino Rosso, a cozy Italian restaurant nestled in the heart of Boston. The soft glow of string lights overhead reflected on their wine glasses as they celebrated their 7th wedding anniversary. Jessica, a stunning brunette with deep blue eyes, wore a sleek emerald green dress that accentuated her figure. Ryan, a fit 38-year-old with short-cropped dark hair and a dimpled smile, looked sharp in a tailored gray suit. From the outside, they appeared to be the epitome of a perfect couple. However, as the candles flickered between them, a palpable tension hung in the air. Jessica swirled the deep red wine in her glass, her gaze fixed on Ryan. Finally, she broke the silence. "Ryan," she began, her voice soft yet tinged with hesitation. "Do you still love me?" Ryan's smile faltered for a moment, and he leaned back in his chair, studying her expression. "Of course, I do, Jess." "What kind of question is that?" Jessica glanced down, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "It's just, there's something I've been thinking about a lot lately." Ryan raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "Go on," he said, his tone encouraging but cautious. Jessica leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "If you really love me, would you let me explore being with someone else?" Ryan froze, the glass of wine halfway to his lips. He set it down carefully, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. "What?" "I'm serious," Jessica said, her tone almost casual, though her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her napkin. "It's something I've never had a chance to experience. I need to know who I am beyond just us." Ryan blinked, struggling to process her words. "Jess, we've been married for 7 years. We've built a life together. Why would you even consider something like this now?" Jessica sighed, her hands nervously tracing the rim of her glass. "I'm not saying I don't love you, Ryan. I do. But I've never been with anyone else but you. Don't you ever wonder if there's more to life? More to us?" Ryan's jaw tightened. His brown eyes, usually warm, now burned with a mix of confusion and frustration. "Jess, I thought we had more. A future. A plan. Kids, eventually." Jessica let out a quiet laugh, shaking her head. "Kids? Ryan, I'm not ready for that. Not until I've figured out who I am. How can I commit to a family when I don't even know myself?" Ryan leaned forward, his voice growing more urgent. "This isn't about kids, Jess. This is about our marriage. What you're asking for, it doesn't sound like self-discovery. It sounds like you're trying to throw everything we've built away." Jessica's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm not throwing anything away, Ryan. I'm being honest with you. I could have kept this to myself, but I didn't. Doesn't that count for something?" Ryan shook his head, his frustration evident. "You think being honest makes this okay? You're asking me to watch while you explore with other people. Jess, that's not marriage. That's betrayal." Her gaze softened, and for a moment, vulnerability flickered in her eyes. "I don't want to hurt you, Ryan. I just want to figure out who I am. For us. For our future." Ryan scoffed, leaning back in his chair. "And you think sleeping with other people is the way to figure that out?" His voice dropped, tinged with bitterness. "What about us? What about me?" Jessica hesitated, then reached across the table, her hand resting lightly on his. "Ryan, this doesn't mean I don't love you. I do. I'm just lost." Before Ryan could respond, the waiter approached, placing the bill on the table. The tension was so thick it seemed to rattle the glasses. The young man quickly retreated, sensing the storm brewing. Ryan picked up the check, sliding his card onto the tray without a word. As the waiter whisked it away, Ryan stood, his voice clipped. "Let's go. We'll talk about this at home." The drive back to their townhouse in Boston's Beacon Hill neighborhood was steeped in suffocating silence. Ryan's grip on the steering wheel was tight, his knuckles white. Jessica stared out the passenger window, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. The soft hum of the car's engine was the only sound until Ryan finally broke the silence as they pulled into their driveway. "I don't know who you've been talking to, Jess," he said, his voice low but firm. "But this isn't you." Jessica unbuckled her seatbelt, her tone defensive. "What's that supposed to mean? Just because I'm questioning things doesn't mean I've changed who I am." Ryan didn't respond immediately, stepping out of the car and walking toward the front door. Jessica followed, her heels clicking softly against the stone walkway. Once inside, Jessica tossed her purse onto the counter, spinning to face him. "You're acting like I've already cheated on you." "I haven't, Ryan. I've been honest with you about everything." Ryan closed the door behind them, the sound echoing in the quiet house. "Honest?" he repeated, his tone sharper now. "Jess, you're asking me to be okay with something that destroys the foundation of what we have. Do you even hear yourself?" Jessica's eyes flashed with frustration. "And you're refusing to even try to understand me. You're so stuck in your idea of what a marriage should be that you can't see this isn't about you. It's about me." Ryan took a step closer, his voice firm but not raised. "Marriage isn't just about you, Jess. It's about us. And what you're asking for, it's selfish. You don't get to tear us apart and call it self-discovery." Jessica's expression hardened, her arms crossing over her chest. "You keep saying I'm tearing us apart, Ryan. But maybe what's really breaking us is your refusal to listen. You think marriage is about control, about everything fitting into this perfect little box you've created." Ryan exhaled sharply, pacing across the room. "Control? Jess, all I've ever done is try to make you happy. I've supported you, loved you, been there for you every step of the way. And now, you're standing here telling me that's not enough. It's not about enough." Jessica snapped, her voice rising. "It's about me needing something different. Something more. Can't you see that?" Ryan stopped pacing, his dark eyes locking onto hers. "No, Jess, I can't see that. Because what you're asking for doesn't make sense. If you wanted something more, why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you talk to me before it came to this?" Jessica hesitated, her confidence wavering for a moment. I didn't know how to say it. I didn't want to hurt you." "Well, congratulations," Ryan said bitterly. "You found the worst way to do it." Jessica flinched, her defenses crumbling. For a moment, silence filled the room, the weight of their words hanging heavy in the air. Then, Jessica straightened, her voice quieter now. "I need space, Ryan. Time to figure things out." Ryan's heart sank as he watched her turn toward the bedroom. "And what does that mean, Jess? Are you leaving? Walking out on 7 years because you're confused?" Jessica paused in the doorway, her back to him. "I'm not walking out. I need a few days to think. To clear my head." Ryan shook his head in disbelief. "And where are you going?" "I'll stay at Willow Creek Inn," she replied, naming a small boutique hotel near the Boston Common. "It's quiet. I'll have space to think." Ryan crossed his arms, his frustration simmering beneath the surface. "Fine. Go. But don't expect me to just sit here waiting for you to decide if you still want this marriage." Jessica turned to face him, her blue eyes filled with sadness. "I'm not trying to end things, Ryan. I I don't know what else to do. Ryan didn't respond, his gaze fixed on her as she disappeared into the bedroom. Moments later, he heard the sound of a suitcase being unzipped. As the hours dragged on, Ryan sat alone in the living room, staring at the empty glass on the coffee table in front of him. His thoughts swirled, a storm of anger, hurt, and suspicion. Something about Jessica's explanation didn't sit right with him. If this was just about space, why did it feel like there was more to the story? Ryan's phone buzzed on the couch beside him. It was a text from his best friend, Eric, a former private investigator who'd left the field to start his own security firm. Ryan hesitated, then picked up the phone and dialed Eric's number. "Ryan," Eric answered, his voice warm but concerned. "What's going on?" "It's late. I need your help," Ryan said, his voice heavy with emotion. "It's about Jessica." Over the next half hour, Ryan explained everything: Jessica's request, her sudden need for space, and her plan to stay at the Willow Creek Inn. Eric listened without interruption, his tone serious when he finally spoke. "You're doing the right thing by reaching out," Eric said. "I'll look into this discreetly. If there's nothing, you'll have peace of mind. But if there's more, we'll find out." Ryan ended the call, his chest tight with anxiety. He hated the idea of investigating his wife, but his gut told him something was wrong. The next morning, Ryan went through the motions of his routine, though his thoughts were consumed by Eric's words. By late afternoon, his phone buzzed with a message: "Meet me at my office. I have something." Ryan's heart raced as he drove to Eric's downtown office. When he arrived, Eric handed him a folder, his expression grim. "Ryan, I've been monitoring Jessica's activities. She did check into Willow Creek Inn, but she hasn't been spending her evenings alone." Ryan opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were photos: Jessica at an upscale lounge called the Gilded Ivy, laughing with a man Ryan didn't recognize. Another image showed them sitting close, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "She's been meeting him for the past 2 nights," Eric explained. "Same place, same time." Ryan's jaw tightened as he stared at the photos. The hurt was overwhelming, but anger began to rise within him. "Who is he?" "I'm still working on that," Eric said. "But I'll get you a name soon. For now, I suggest you focus on what comes next." Ryan sat in his car outside the Gilded Ivy, gripping the steering wheel tightly. He'd parked across the street, his gaze fixed on the lounge's elegant entrance. He knew Jessica was inside, and the thought of her sharing drinks and laughter with another man sent a wave of anger coursing through him. He had debated whether to confront her here or wait until she returned home. But the images Eric had shown him were seared into his mind, and his patience had run out. Taking a deep breath, Ryan stepped out of his car and crossed the street. The warm glow of the lounge's lights spilled onto the sidewalk as he approached. Inside, the space was buzzing with conversation, clinking glasses, and soft jazz playing in the background. It didn't take long for Ryan to spot Jessica. She sat in a corner booth with the same man from the photos, a tall, dark-haired man in his early 40s, wearing a tailored suit. They were leaning in close, laughing over what looked like martinis. Ryan's chest tightened as he made his way toward them. Jessica didn't notice him at first, but the moment he reached their table, her laughter stopped, and her eyes widened in shock. "Ryan," she said, her voice barely audible. The man looked up, his expression shifting from confusion to mild concern. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his tone calm but guarded. Ryan ignored him, his gaze locked on Jessica. "So this is what space looks like," he said, his voice low but laced with anger. Jessica's cheeks flushed as she struggled to find her words. "It's not what it looks like, Ryan. I can explain." "Explain?" Ryan snapped, leaning on the table. "You leave our home, tell me you need time to figure yourself out, and now I find you here, laughing, drinking, and cozying up with some stranger." The man cleared his throat, holding up his hands. Look, I don't know what's going on between you two, but I think it's best if I leave. No, Ryan said sharply, pointing at him. You're staying right here. I want to know who the hell you are and why you're with my wife. Jessica stood abruptly, placing a hand on Ryan's arm. Stop it, Ryan. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene. Ryan barked, stepping back. Jess, you've been sneaking around behind my back, and I'm the one making a scene. The man stood as well, his expression calm but firm. I think you both need to handle this privately. Ryan took a step closer, his anger bubbling over. Stay out of this. You have no idea what you've walked into. Jessica stepped between them, her voice trembling. Ryan, please. He has nothing to do with us. This is my fault, not his. Ryan's eyes narrowed, his voice quieter now but no less intense. Then tell me the truth, Jess. How long has this been going on? Jessica hesitated, her gaze darting between Ryan and the man. It's not like that, she said finally. We've just been talking. That's all. Talking? Ryan repeated, his tone dripping with disbelief. You've been meeting him for days, Jess. Don't insult me by pretending this is innocent. The man stepped back, adjusting his jacket. I'm sorry for any misunderstanding. I'll leave you two to sort this out. Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Jessica watched him go before turning back to Ryan, her expression a mix of anger and guilt. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. Ryan stared at her, his chest heaving. You didn't have to destroy our marriage, but here we are. Jessica's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing. Ryan stepped back, shaking his head. I'm done, Jess. Whatever this is, whatever you're trying to find, it's not worth what we had. Without waiting for a response, Ryan turned and walked out of the lounge, leaving Jessica standing alone by the table. The drive home felt like a blur. Ryan's mind raced with everything he'd seen and heard. He wanted to be angry, to yell, to demand answers, but all he felt was an overwhelming sadness. When he arrived home, the silence of the house was deafening. He sat in the living room, staring at the empty space where Jessica's presence once filled the air with warmth and familiarity. His phone buzzed, pulling him out of his thoughts. It was a message from Eric. Got a name for you. The guy Jessica was with is Alan Turner, a corporate attorney. No prior connection to her that I can find so far. Let me know how you want to proceed. Ryan stared at the message, his grip tightening on the phone. He typed a quick response. Thanks, Eric. I'll handle it from here. For the next few days, Ryan focused on himself. He went to the gym, spent time with friends, and tried to find some semblance of normalcy. But every time he walked through the door of their home, the weight of Jessica's betrayal lingered. Jessica reached out a few times, leaving voicemails and texts. Each message was a variation of the same plea, we need to talk. Ryan wasn't ready. Not yet. A week later, Ryan sat in his living room, sorting through some paperwork for his job. The faint sound of a key turning in the lock snapped him out of his focus. The front door opened, and Jessica stepped inside, her expression cautious, her shoulders tense. Ryan, she said softly, her voice hesitant. He looked up from his papers, his face unreadable. Jessica. I needed to come back, she said, setting her bag down by the door. We need to talk. I owe you that much. Ryan leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. You owe me a lot more than that, Jess. But go ahead, talk. Jessica sat on the couch across from him, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I know I've hurt you. I know what I did was selfish, and it broke your trust. But I need you to understand. I never wanted to lose you. Ryan let out a bitter laugh. You've got a funny way of showing it. You say you didn't want to lose me, but you've done everything possible to make sure I can't look at you the same way. Jessica flinched but pressed on. I thought I needed something outside of us to feel whole. I thought meeting other people would help me understand myself better. But all it did was show me how much I'd already lost by walking away from you. Ryan's eyes narrowed. So what? You had your little epiphany, and now you expect me to just forget everything? The lies? The sneaking around? The man at the Gilded Ivy? Jessica's cheeks flushed, and her voice trembled. I didn't sleep with him, Ryan. Or anyone else. I swear. Do you think that matters? Ryan asked, his voice rising slightly. You betrayed me the moment you walked out that door and started meeting other men behind my back. Whether or not it got physical is irrelevant. Jessica's tears began to flow, but she didn't look away. You're right. I betrayed you. I was wrong. But I'm here now, trying to fix this. Ryan leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. And how exactly do you plan to fix this, Jess? Because right now, I don't see a path forward. Jessica hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. I don't have all the answers, she admitted. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild what we had. Ryan shook his head slowly. What we had is gone, Jess. And I don't know if I can forgive you for that. Before Jessica could respond, Ryan's phone buzzed on the coffee table. He glanced at the screen and saw a text from Eric. Urgent, we need to meet. There's more you need to know. Ryan frowned, his gut tightening. He stood, grabbing his jacket. I need to go. Jessica looked up, alarmed. Ryan, please. Don't just leave in the middle of this. We're finally talking. This isn't over, Ryan said firmly. But I need to handle something first. Without waiting for a response, he left the house, his mind racing. He met Eric at a quiet diner on the outskirts of the city, where his friend was already seated in a booth, a manila folder in front of him. What's this? Ryan asked, sliding into the seat across from him. Eric pushed the folder toward him. More digging on Alan Turner. It turns out your wife wasn't the only one he's been meeting with. He's connected to several women in similar situations, women who are unhappy in their marriages and looking for guidance. Ryan's brows furrowed as he opened the folder. Inside were documents, emails, and photos linking Alan Turner to what appeared to be a discreet counseling service for troubled marriages. But the more Ryan read, the more it became clear, this wasn't counseling. It was manipulation. He preys on women who feel lost, Eric explained. Encourages them to step out of their marriages under the guise of self-discovery. And when things fall apart, he moves on to the next. Ryan clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. So, he was using Jessica. Looks like it, Eric said. But it's worse than that. Some of these women filed complaints against him for inappropriate behavior. Nothing stuck, though. He's careful. Ryan closed the folder, his mind a whirlwind of anger and disbelief. I need to confront him. Eric shook his head. Be smart about this, Ryan. Don't let your emotions get the better of you. Ryan nodded, though his resolve was clear. Thanks, Eric. I'll handle it from here. Later that evening, Ryan drove to Alan Turner's office, a sleek building in Boston's financial district. He waited outside, watching as the lights inside began to dim. Finally, Turner emerged, his suit immaculate, a briefcase in hand. Alan Turner, Ryan called, stepping out of his car. Turner turned, his expression calm but wary. Do I know you? You know my wife, Ryan said coldly, stepping closer. Turner's face remained impassive. Ah, Jessica's husband. I was wondering if we'd ever meet. Ryan's fists clenched, but he kept his voice steady. I know what you've been doing. Not just with Jessica, with all the women you've manipulated. You're a predator, hiding behind the facade of a counselor. Turner smirked, adjusting his tie. I don't know what you think you've uncovered, but I assure you, my intentions have always been professional. Ryan stepped closer, his voice low and menacing. If you ever contact Jessica again, or any other woman, you'll regret it. Turner's smirk faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. I think we're done here, he said, turning to leave. Ryan watched him go, the confrontation doing little to ease his anger. But as he drove home, a sense of clarity began to settle over him. This wasn't just about Jessica anymore. It was about taking control of his life and refusing to let anyone else dictate his future. When Ryan returned home, Jessica was waiting for him in the living room. She stood as he entered, her eyes searching his face. Where did you go? She asked softly. Ryan hesitated, then said, to get answers. About Alan Turner. Jessica's face paled. Ryan, Don't, he interrupted, holding up a hand. I know what kind of person he is. And I know you fell for his lies. But that doesn't change what happened between us. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, Ryan. I let myself get swept up in something I didn't understand. But I want to fix this. I want to fix us. Ryan's expression softened, but his voice remained firm. I don't know if that's possible, Jess. I need time. And so do you. Maybe apart. Jessica nodded, her tears spilling over. I'll do whatever it takes, Ryan. Just tell me what to do. For now, just focus on yourself, he said, turning toward the stairs. I need to do the same. As he climbed the steps to their bedroom, Ryan felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in weeks, he felt a glimmer of hope.